Okay, today we're going to talk about core setting. So core setting is basically a setup that I use before I go into any exercise that I'm doing in life. It could be our physiotherapy exercises that I'm giving you. It could be workout exercises at the gym or with your trainer. But these cues are important to help align the body as best as we can within our limits of our current state, so that the exercises that we do have as much value as possible. The reality is, through the stresses of life and our postures, our injuries, our past accidents, things can kind of deviate from the norm. So when we set up for an exercise, we want to reestablish that norm as best as we can, and then from there, we're going to execute our exercise. So with that being said, I have 5 cues that I use every single time before I do any exercise. Okay, they are going to be tall spine, chin tuck, shoulder blade happy middle, pelvic happy middle, ribs down. Those 5 cues are something that we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about, just so we're all on the same page of how I want you to be executing any of these exercises that we go through the course of this program of care. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, the first thing we're talking about is tall spine. So over the course of our lifetime, we have been working against gravity, and our postures have been kind of mostly at a desk if you went to school a lot through your years, or if you're at a desk for your work. Things tend to generally collapse downwards, and that's kind of what we talk about when we say, bad posture and things like that. So in order for us to combat that, we really want to promote what we call a tall spine. So the best way to think about this is, just try it with me now. You're going to just get into a nice kind of slouched seated posture here. Think about your worst kind of posture, which for me is kind of like this. And then from here, what I'm going to do is you're going to imagine there's a string on your head, and someone's like just taking that string and just pulling you up towards the ceiling. Okay, and just go as high as you can go. Sometimes you could even push yourself farther than you think you can if you just go nice and slow. Almost try and unweight yourself completely. You're almost trying to get off your sit bones a little bit more. And once you feel like you can't go any farther, this is what we call tall spine. Give it a try. Number 2, chin tuck. So once we get our tall spine, it's all about keeping our spine in its normal alignment as best as possible. So if you look at the cervical spine, it kind of has a C-shaped curve. Your mid-back has more of an opposite, and then your lower back comes back around like the neck. But what we normally see is people kind of have too much of a curvature. So what we want to do is we want to think about, on top of our tall spine, chin tuck. So think about double chin, or ugly guy or girl coming in for a kiss. Give them one of these, and you're going to set your neck up for good posture when you execute your exercise. So we went over tall spine, chin tuck. Number 3, shoulder blade happy middle. So what does our shoulder blades have to do with our core? Well, if you kind of look at the anatomy of it, your foundation of your shoulder, the serratus anterior, is pretty much woven directly into our obliques. And our obliques are attached to the core. So that's why shoulder blade setting is pretty important. And when we talk about setting our shoulder blades in, I call it happy middle. It's just finding the midpoint of that shoulder blade. So let's go over an exercise together to find our happy middle. So with the arms out in front of you here, what I'm going to have you do is you're just going to shrug your shoulders all the way up, and then you're going to pull your shoulder blades all the way down. So as you go up, you start to hit that one extreme. As you go down, you hit that other extreme. explore for a bit, and then find that middle position. And then our shoulder blades also have the ability to kind of come away from our spine and come towards our spine. So we can practice that now. Push your shoulder blades away from each other. Pull your shoulder blades in towards each other. Play around with that for a little bit. Find middle. Find middle. Any exercise, particularly for the shoulder, but most exercises that use the arm, we want to find that shoulder blade middle position and lock that in place. Number 4, lower back, pelvic, happy middle. So just like the shoulder blades, we're finding that midpoint, happy middle. Same thing applies for the pelvis. We want to find that nice balance point where our pelvis is in its neutral position. So the best way to think about this is to think about our pelvis. It's kind of like a bowl. This bowl has the ability to tip forward. It has the ability to tuck backwards. So let's explore that a little bit on our back, and we're going to find that middle point. That's the one extreme. That's the other extreme. Then you're just going to play around with your extremes. Find your midpoint. You got to lock that point in. This is your pelvic happy middle position. In our last cue we're going to talk about is the ribs down position. So the ribs are kind of like the opposite of our pelvis. So our pelvis is the bowl facing upwards that opens up upwards. Our ribs is also like a bowl that opens downwards. And we kind of want them to be pointed in line with each other. We don't want one kind of being dumped forward and the other one being flared up. We want them stacked. So let's go over rib tuck. Alrighty, let's tie it all together for our core exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to get onto our back and we're going to apply all 5 cues, and then we're going to go right into our first core stability exercise. Step 1, tall spine. Step 2, chin tuck. Step 3, shoulder blade happy middle. Step 4, pelvic happy middle. Step 5, ribs down. Step 6, execute. There you have it. Those are your setup cues. We applied it to the dead bug exercise, but this is literally applied to every exercise you do in life, from a dead bug exercise all the way to a overhead squat. So really think about these cues when you do some of these exercises.